Alrighty, just a few things to get us all on the same page here. If I can find my copy of the syllabus. There it is. So in theory, quiz 2 is due today on Blackboard. Anyone who wants a hard copy, just remind me after class and I'll get you one. And then in a week from Wednesday, I will pass out your midterm. That will be take home, open book, open note, just not open friend. And it's going to be the same format of exam I gave in class, because I'm slightly lazy. So rather than revamping. And also that type of test is exactly the information I want you all to be understanding. So it'll be a paper copy that you take home and fill out, basically. And for folks on Zoom, just so you know, the class before us ran a little over, plus I was giving an exam, so it's been a little bit of chaos, and that's why I'm still getting set up right now. And of course, this has to be the day that I have to approve the sign-in, because nothing can be easy. It's fine. There we go. Alrighty. Alrighty, so today we're going to walk through some other information about the various aphasias. We're also going to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is animal communication. So we have a little bit about that. I'm just gonna take a sec because I've learned I can't check off and talk at the same time and take attendance real quick, and then we'll go ahead and dive on in. All right. So thinking about, so we had talked about mostly Wernicke's and Broca's aphasia last week because we did the case studies that focused on those, but there are other forms of aphasia as well. And so we are going to kind of look at these as well. So for example, one of the types of aphasia that is described in your book, and I'm just realizing I don't think I have a video about it, so I may just do a quick YouTube search while we're chatting, is transcortical aphasia. And that's also sometimes referred to as isolation syndrome. Aphasia. That one might be helpful with the different types of aphasias. I'll leave that open and we'll look from there. But transcortical aphasia, they can repeat things that you say to them. They can understand what you're saying to them. And they can name objects. So it would seem like, hey, they're doing great. But they cannot speak spontaneously. So if you were to try to have a conversation with them, they would maybe only be able to repeat back what you said to them. And sometimes they have a hard time comprehending words as well. So I'm gonna, actually play this types of aphasia video just because I think it might be helpful.
And then I switched to Liberty Mutual and saved hundreds. I know, exactly.
The NFL season is here.
They are showing out with the pregame fence.
Show me where to get that.
Broca's area is affected. The patient is, the speech is broken.
There we go.
All right, let's talk about the different types of aphasia. We're going to talk about Broca's aphasia, represented by the B, Wernicke's aphasia, represented by the W over here, and conduction aphasia, represented by the C. All right, and then we'll make a brief mention of some other types of aphasia at the end. Okay, so let's start with aphasia in general. Aphasia is a higher order language deficit, which when a person has an inability to understand or speak the language.
This is just going to be this picture of the brain the whole time, which is not that engaging or helpful. So this is probably why I don't have an example, because the video is not great. So we'll just kind of skip that. But I do have, I believe, an example of cortical aphasia, and if not, there's another, conduct aphasia. If not, there is one there as well. So conduction aphasia, we do have this example, so we'll go ahead and watch this first, and then we will describe the symptoms in a little bit more detail.
The producer asked us to count to 10. Remember that?
Yes.
Can you do that again?
Why? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. Boing to Gabriel's people. Go. I can't.
No, that's really hard. Let me get you started.
I was stunned.
Okay. 1,
2, 4, 5, 6. Better send. Point.
Good enough. Let's.
Is that all right?
That's fine.
What is so interesting about this lady, she clearly is very intelligent, and she clearly understands the instructions, and she clearly can express herself in a very good way. But you could see how after a while she completely disconnects what she wants to do, what she's heard she should do, and what she actually does.
I believe that was Eric Kandel at the end, who's a Nobel Prize winning psychiatrist. So that's a pretty good video. I think I'll go ahead and post that on Blackboard for everybody. But yeah, so what you saw here is that this is sort of a paradoxical disorder, in that she can speak. If you asked her to name objects, she could do that. Try this one. I'm having some problems with this lately. There we go. She could understand speech. She understood what was being asked of her, right? When she was asked to name these things. She can't repeat things. So that's sort of a paradoxical bit. And then she has a disconnection, or people with this type of aphasia have a disconnection between perceptual word image and motor systems producing words. So what happens here is that Wernicke's and Broca's areas, and hang on just a sec. Folks on Zoom, you should be able to turn on the captions for everything. I have them going in class, so you should be able to see the Zoom captions. But Broca's and Wernicke's area are normally connected to each other because they need to communicate with each other in order to produce speech and understand speech. And what happens here is that Wernicke's and Broca's areas are separated in conduction aphasia. So again, a little bit of a difference there in terms of where the pathology stems from. And while I'm chatting, and again, normally I'd have all this stuff pulled up, but that's okay. We're just gonna roll with it. It'll be a flexible day. But I have an image for y'all that I can pull up that shows these areas of the brain that might make it easier to conceptualize and sort of wrap our heads around. There we go. Haha. So let me make it big, because that'll make it a little bit easier here. There we go. All right. So here is Broca's area. And again, that's for articulation, that's for working memory, it's where we sort of represent language when we're working with it in working memory. And then here, looks the same color as the rest of the brain on the slide. Up here, it's really helpful, it's yellow on my screen, but this part here, essentially, that's Wernicke's area. That allows you to hold sentences in memory, do word rhyming. There are other things these pieces do as well. So Wernicke's area, for example, is really involved in the understanding of the meaning of speech. And Broca's area is sending instructions for speech articulation to your motor cortex. So telling your motor cortex how to make speech happen, essentially. But then there are a bunch of other areas that are also related to language and therefore can also be implicated in these various aphasias. So the insula can result in apraxia of speech if there's damage there. Arcuate fasciculus, sure. Recurring utterances. So if you repeat things over and over, or just things that we commonly say. The superior temporal gyrus has to do with sentence comprehension. And then the posterior middle temporal gyrus, not shockingly in the posterior area of the brain here, has to do with fluent aphasia. So again, if we're thinking about the aphasia we were just talking about, if essentially the connection between Wernicke's and Broca's is important, right? It's either been severed or there's a blockage. That is where that is going to stem from. There's also a type of aphasia called anomic aphasia, and I'll write that one up just because. Anomic aphasia. And while I'm at it, I'll just write up all the other types of aphasia just so you all have them spelled out. So we know Wernicke's and Broca's. And again, those each have to do with deficits, damage of some way in those specific areas of the brain. Then we also talked about transcortical. And then we were just talking about conduction. Okay, so anomic aphasia is where you can comprehend, produce speech, and you can repeat things people say to you, but you have a hard time doing things like naming objects. So sometimes anomic aphasia is actually called amnesic aphasia, because what you seem to have lost is your ability to sort of connect your memory of how to say things to communication. And then we have global aphasia. And global aphasias result in labored, non-fluent speech, poor comprehension, repetition, and naming. And they're produced by large lesions to both Wernicke's and Broca's areas. So again, you would have maybe tumors in both areas. Or you could have multiple mini strokes that affect both areas. And when you have a global aphasia, not shockingly by the name global, right? It means that you cannot read or write at all. So that's really going to affect your communication, yeah. Typically, no. I would say the only exception would be if you were born with a defect, which in of itself, we may or may not be able to classify as damage to the brain, depending whether. But yeah, basically, unless there's something that goes wrong in the brain, typically you will not see this. Now, that being said, what happens in the brain can be sort of more far-reaching than just this. So like last class, we talked about Bruce Willis, right? Who has a whole bunch of other stuff going on, frontotemporal dementia, and aphasia is just part of it for him, right? But yeah, typically, for most of the stuff we're going to talk about in this class in general, it's only going to happen if there's some sort of problem in the brain, whether that was genetic, something you got at birth, or it was something that what we often call acquired, right? You got it from a stroke or an injury or something along those lines. There's also something called transcortical motor aphasia. Again, just to we love to confuse ourselves, right? We have something called transcortical, but we also have something called transcortical motor. And so people with transcortical motor aphasia have good repetition, but poor spontaneous production of speech. Their speech tends to be halting and non-fluid. So in some ways it can look like Broca's aphasia along those lines. But if you say a sentence to them, they have unimpaired, fluent repetition of an entire sentence. Their comprehension for understanding other people's speech is unimpaired. Their ability to read out loud is unimpaired. So if you give them something to read, they can just read it. And reading comprehension is also unimpaired. Naming things and people, often unimpaired. And writing is often unimpaired. So what they think, what happens here, it's kind of similar to what we were just talking about when Broca's and Wernicke's are separated in conduction aphasia. Here, what they think happens is that you get lesions near Broca's area. So not on Broca's area, but near it. And that those separate Broca's area from the nearby cortical areas necessary for normal speech. So essentially, the idea here is that Broca's area usually holds that representation for articulating words. It communicates that to the motor cortex. So in transcortical motor aphasia, what happens is Broca's can still do that, but now its ability to tell the motor cortex how to do that is disrupted. So certainly very challenging. And now I saw that Jasmine, so let me go back to your comment, Jasmine, because it looks like a good question. Whether dyscalculia is an aphasia and some of the other things. Really interestingly, so dyscalculia, dysgraphia, dyslexia is the one people know more, and I'll put all these terms up here so you guys don't have to guess how to spell them. So dyslexia is the one most people have heard of. That is problems with reading. Dysgraphia is problems with writing. And then dyscalculia sounds like a disease, but it is just difficulties with math. Okay, so all of these are not technically aphasias, but they're in the same realm. So these are problems or disorders. Typically, we tend to use the word disability. I'm not sure that I really like that word for it that much, right? But issues with differences in these specific features. What the distinction is within aphasia versus a dysphasia, basically, is aphasia indicates sort of lack of able to do that. Whereas dysphasia means like difficulty with being able to do that. So there are what they call the pure aphasias. And they're called pure, not because we've like distilled them, but because they are selective impairments in very specifically language. So you can have alexia, okay? And that is the complete inability to read. Okay, so something's going on in your brain where you just cannot read. It's not like dyslexia where you might struggle or letters might reverse or seem like they're wandering around the page for you. It is, you cannot read. Agraphia, based on everything we just said, not surprising, complete inability to write. So again, in this case, you could probably read, but you could not write. And then there's word deafness. I've also seen this called, depending on who's talking about it, pure word deafness. But this is where you cannot hear or repeat words. Or like comprehend them, right? I guess in theory, your ear could process the sound because you can process other noises, but you don't recognize them as words. Yeah, thanks for your question. That was a great question, Jasmine. And so. Okay, we got someone who's coming into our office. We are magically neuropsychologists. And we think they have something on here, right? We think there's an aphasia going on. Their reported issue probably reported, again, depending on their abilities and what the aphasia is affecting, right? Probably reported by someone coming in with them, family member, support person. How do we figure out what's going on? Well, there's a whole host of things we can do, including a whole bunch of tests that are specifically made for aphasias. Unfortunately, these are so common. And again, either in isolation or as part of other things like dementias, which we'll talk about, I believe, starting later this week, that we have a lot of tests that were made for them and made pretty early on in the history of neuroscience. So we're looking at the 60s and 70s, but they're good. They've been well maintained in terms of updates. And so I think we mentioned the Boston Diagnostic Aphasia Test before. This is where like the Boston Naming Test is part of it. I believe if you do the whole thing, it takes like 7 hours. But if you're really trying to parse apart what is going on for this person in terms of their language production and understanding, something like this can be really fun. Other ones, again, just made by other people, like measures very slightly different things, include the Functional Communicative Profile, the Neurosensory Center, Comprehensive Examination for Aphasia, the Porch Index of Communicative Ability, the Minnesota Test for Differential Diagnosis of Aphasia, and the Wetman-Jones Language Modality Test for Aphasia, shockingly created by people named Wetman and Jones. There are also screeners. So if you think there might be an aphasia going on, but maybe that's not the primary problem, or you're not sure if that's actually what's happening, you can do these screenings, and that'll tell you whether you should do a more in-depth battery. So there's the Conversation analysis, just what it sounds like. You try to have a conversation with them in a structured way, following their guidelines. And that can tell you a lot about which of these aphasias they might be struggling with. The Halstead-Wetman aphasia screening test. Again, I do say Halstead and Wetman. And then the token test. So all of these are ways that you can do sort of a quick and dirty. Is there some sort of language aphasia thing going on here, right? Or if yes, let's get more into it and see what's going on. If no, okay, then we start looking at other stuff, right? So these tests are examining things like auditory and verbal comprehension, oral and written expression, and conversational speech. All right, so now what we're going to do is talk even more about dyslexia. Gonna move this to the side for us. And actually, hang on just a sec. What I just rediscovered this morning is that if I'm doing something in Google Slides, it is like infinitely better for me to just turn on their captions. If it'll reload. There we go. Because what it does is it puts the captions underneath and then it never is in the way of what's on the slide. So that's a lot better. So I think one of the things a lot of people don't realize is there are a lot of different types of dyslexia. So we tend to think of dyslexia as one thing, right? You have dyslexia, you have trouble reading, boom, that's it. But there's a lot more nuance here. And one of the things I should say before we dive into these even more complicated ones is one of the basics, is what I was hinting at before with like the aphasias, and that's just acquired versus development. Okay, so developmental is a failure to learn to read during development. That something's getting in the way during development where you just never really got it done right, mostly likely because of something within your brain that makes you neurodivergent, that makes it difficult for you to comprehend in the same way other people do. And that's why we do testing, and that's why we create individualized education plans so that kiddos can get the extra help they need to get them up to speed. Acquired is your whole life you've been able to read just fine. Something happens, head injury, stroke, something along those lines, and now you're having a hard time reading. Okay, so those are the distinctions there. So we start way above, I think, where people would typically think. We think of like you're reading words on the page, right? We start with letters. Okay, if I put letters on a page and put them in front of someone, is it harder to name a letter when it's surrounded by other letters that don't like make a word, right? You're just talking letters on the page. So if that is true, then you have something called attentional dyslexia. And the sort of philosophy there is it's more challenging for you to focus in your attention on that one letter. So with attentional dyslexia, you have difficulties naming letters when more than one is present. And then that can also carry over to words. You have difficulty reading just one word when more than one word is present, which is the majority of the time when we try to read, right? Then what can happen is you can have words that are misread. And that are the errors confined to one half of the word. So it's either always like the front half of the word or the back half of the word. And this is called neglect, or sometimes called positional dyslexia. And we're going to learn a lot more about neglect later in the semester when we talk about attention. But You can get as extreme as what's called hemi-neglect, where basically you can see everything on one side of your visual field, but it's like you feel like you can't see. And you have a hard time interacting with it and things along those lines. So this is that, but very specific to words, where you would, when you're reading words, always miss the second half of the word, for example. Okay. Do you have to read words out letter by letter? Some people have to do that in order to understand what they're trying to read. Not shockingly, this is called letter by letter reading. Sometimes we give things really obvious names. It's helpful, right? And so you can only read by essentially spelling the words out. Now, what else can happen, and this is one that I remember when I was in grad school and really learning about the types of dyslexia, this one surprised me because I think I just wasn't aware that this was a thing. So what can happen is you're reading along, and let's say you're supposed to read the word dog, right? And it said you read out loud puppy. Now those two words look nothing alike, but have a very similar meaning, right? And in fact, we could argue that a puppy is just a small dog, right? A young dog. So here you're making semantic errors. You are impaired at writing and also short-term verbal memory. This is called deep dyslexia. So your errors are about the semantics, the understanding of the words, rather than letters feeling like they're reversed. So sometimes what we'll do, and these are included in these aphasia batteries, is we'll give people non-words, sort of letters we put together that are pronounceable, but are not words in the English language. And so there are people who don't struggle with any of the other things we've talked about, but struggle with reading these non-words, that it's really bad, or they just look at it and they go, I can't read that. And that's called phonological dyslexia. And basically that just goes back to the same root as phonics. You can't sound something out that's not a word. And then are regular words read aloud much better than what we call exception words? So regular words are words that look like they should be pronounced that way, right? This has been really interesting because we have a 5-year-old and she's really starting to dig into her reading, right? So she'll read anything around. And we were at BJ's one day and she was like, "It's a D-lie." Like, what? And we looked up, she was trying to pronounce deli, right? But like for her to sound it out, it's in her mind, it should be D-lie, right? And so these folks would struggle with those abnormal words like that aren't, you know, there, right? All these weird words. English is a really hard language to learn. I'm sure Bio could share that with us, right? Like we have all these irregular verbs and all these irregular words that are pronounced not great, right? And so for some folks, they end up with what they call surface dyslexia, where they can read by sounding words out. And then that results in them having trouble with words that you can't sound out. These are regular words, right? So let me just pause for a minute from my like blah 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 just talking and ask about what you all knew about dyslexia before reading about it, and what might have surprised you all about the different things.
Like you mentioned, I never knew there was a bunch of variations of it. I always assumed it was like its own disorder.
Right. Good. I don't know if this is just like my own personal what happened in my childhood, but there was always the one Disney like thing, and it was the one like explaining what it was. Oh, that's really cool. And that is like literally my only memory of it. I totally missed that. That was not that's awesome that that exists. Or maybe seeing that. Because it's like that was really fun. Oh, that's interesting. All right, well, we'll go here, here, and then here. That was nice. So they would draw specific to the classes. Yeah, and sometimes people will like put words backwards or letters backwards, and other times they'll like flip them upside down, right? I don't know if anybody ever read the really silly book by Roald Dahl, and I know how problematic Roald Dahl is with all this anti-Semitism that people have discovered, right? But there was a book called Esiotrop about a guy with dyslexia, and Esiotrop was tortoise, and he would walk around backwards. That fixed it. I mean, obviously that's gonna fix your dyslexia, right? But that made me kind of realize there were a little bit different types. Yeah. Yeah, that's great that you even knew about dyscalculia. That's again, something I don't think I worried about while I was in grad.
But I just remember when we started as a mixing of papers, like, I just thought you were completely. It's not a review, that would be
Yeah, and I know like, for other people, the experience, and I think I have a video that shows like the experience of dyslexia, so let me see if that's the case. But like for some people, it's like the words, all the words on the page and letters just kind of like dance around, and so obviously, like, I can't imagine trying to read like that, right? But yeah, that there are these really different experiences within the same thing that we've labeled. Okay, yeah, this one, hopefully this link still works, because this was such a great example, I thought. And this one, I will try to turn on the captions. Penny, so let me. Well, actually, I think everything's on the screen, because it's dyslexia, so it's reading. So you can see a couple different things. The first thing was just looking like there were things in the way of reading the words. The last one was sort of the letters flipping upside down. This is like words just are part of words looking like they're not there, right? So this might be that positional dyslexia. Some people will, I mean, it's not synesthesia, but like see colors where the word should be. Again, some people will feel like the words do that on the page or the words run off the page. And again, just like positional dyslexia, for some people, it'll look like things are flickering and it's hard to focus on it. Yeah, so for some kids, they feel like they're sort of walking on a balance beam or a tightrope trying to understand this. For other kids, it's just, I don't know if you all, did anyone in here ever watch Charlie Brown? You said like, okay, good, got some nods. Okay, so if you're not familiar with Charlie Brown, anytime an adult talked on that cartoon, it sounded like wah, 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 right? And for some people, when they go to read, that's essentially what it seems like. Yeah, and again, as we talked about, you know, for Bella Thorne and other folks, it's like the letters get mixed up. Letters can look like they're backwards. And I mean, as you can see, like, of course it would make it hard to concentrate when you read, if any of those things were happening, right? Yeah, and then this one, I'll let it play in a sec, but this type of stuff is really interesting to study with like eye tracking technology, right? That like most of the time if we put someone without dyslexia, someone who's sort of neurotypical on an experiment, they would just sort of read across and then read across. And people who are struggle with dyslexia or other sort of neurodivergent things, they can kind of like jump around the page, and that makes it more challenging to comprehend what you're trying to read. So again, it can be very overwhelming and it can look really different for different kiddos, or adults can have this too, obviously. And that will give you different experiences. So I have another little video about what it's like to have dyslexia in school. And again, I know that you all are psych majors, so you're very like empathetic people and probably have some idea, but I just always think that it's better if we can hear it in the words of someone who actually has experienced that particular disorder. Okay, let's go ahead and open. Thank you.
How powerful is Cox Internet? So powerful that one day you'll be able to transform this.
When I first found out I was dyslexic when I was in 4th grade, the teachers pulled my parents aside and told them that I was profoundly retarded and that they should just pull me out of school because I would never hope to graduate from high school.
Okay, first of all, Jesus Christ, don't do that. Second of all, we don't use the word retarded anymore to refer to people. It's considered a slur, it's considered harmful. So even if we used to actually refer to people diagnostically as mentally retarded, and now what we do is we talk about them as developmentally delayed. No reason to label someone as that, and I'm just like so horrified. But unfortunately not that surprised that people would treat a child this way.
The teacher told us this incredible news, and my husband turns, opens the door, marches down the hallway, goes in the classroom, takes her by her hand, and we march out the front door of the school. We went to a number of different clinicians. We started with an ophthalmologist, we went to an audiologist, we went to a clinical psychologist, and finally we went to a reading specialist. And she was the one who diagnosed Ryan as having dyslexia.
School was hard for me. I felt that I wasn't as smart as everybody else. You know, it made me a little bit shy, made me a little self-conscious about myself.
The school we found was willing to work with Ryan on a one-on-one basis with plenty of parent support at home. We got 2 sets of books. What I would do is when she was at school during the day, is I would record the lesson for the next day, and if there was a reading assignment, I would read the particular chapter. When Ryan came home that night, she would be able to hear my voice on the tape recorder and read along in her book. And that seemed to make a tremendous difference in her reading.
I first started to realize that I could do something about my dyslexia. It was the summer after my 5th grade year. I discovered these great kind of teenage murder mystery novels by R.L. Stine. I loved them. I started recognizing words that I never knew before. It became easier and easier to read them, and I became a little by little faster at reading. The improvements in my reading carried over to school, where I was able to do better scholastically, and I just catapulted to a whole new reading level. But even until I was a senior in high school, I was getting help on various subjects.
When she graduated from high school, I mean, we just had tears in our eyes. We couldn't believe that she had made this accomplishment. And then when she got into college, we were just overwhelmed with pride for how that she had made this next step.
One thing that's helped me cope with my
So again, someone that they told she should just drop out of school, she's never going to do anything, she's in law school, right, which is one of the hardest programs to get into.
Dyslexia in law school is staying very organized, and I do that by writing in different colors when I'm at home and when I'm in class. It helps me differentiate between, you know, obviously what the professor says in class is more important, and I think that's been one of the key things to help for me to be successful in school.
To see her go from a child where they labeled her mildly retarded to a child who is now in law school and who is doing so incredibly well is very, very heartwarming.
Yeah, very heartwarming, and I love a little bit of like stick it to the man-ness too, right? Like there's a little bit of that. And if you're really interested in dyslexia, there are more videos that are a little longer on here as well. Before we start talking about animal communication, I want to take just a couple minutes to talk about some of the basics of language that your book talks about. So phonemes is one of them, and I'm going to spell it wrong. Yeah, I always want to put the E in the wrong place. I don't know why. All right. So phonemes are just the fundamental sounds that make up language. And again, phonics, sound, makes sense. Morphemes are the smallest meaningful units of words. Okay, so we've been like really small. Now we're going to go out really far with lexicon. And lexicon is basically all the words in a language. Syntax is your rules of grammar, right? There are ways we construct a sentence, and this is one of the reasons why, for any Star Wars fans, like the way that Yoda speaks out in our mind, right? Because he uses different rules of syntax than we typically do. Semantics are the meaning of words and the meaning of sentences as well. Prosody are your meanings, your vocal intonations, and those can obviously be choppier or more fluid. And then discourse, in this case, could have different meaning in different situations, but discourse in just building blocks of language means stringing sentences together to form a meaningful narrative. And so, again, I'm going to start talking about communication in animals, because this is one of the ways we're starting to understand the basics of communication more. So, for example, Jane Goodall, who we all know is, you know, the woman who chilled with all the chimpanzees and learned a lot about them. And she said, chimps are displaying a primitive form of communication with one another. And so more and more people kind of went along with that and said, well, if chimps can do that, you know, maybe we can expand on that. And so, for example, there have been several different chimps, gorillas, other great apes that they've taught American Sign Language for objects or for actions. And they created languages with keyboards that they can respond to. One of the really cool things was Kanzi, who we're going to see in the next clip. And so he was there as a young ape when his mother was being taught. And so even though his mother was the one specifically undergoing the lessons, he picked it up, basically. And so then when he got older, they were able to expand on that. And so he learned more than his mother ever did. So we're going to start with Kanzi. And this is, they were having him create sentences. So again, people kind of think like, okay, so they can do nouns, right? And that's probably about it. But in fact, it got pretty sophisticated. Okay, so the person you see with him is Sue Savage Rumbaugh, who is the psychologist who did a lot of this work with Kanzi. She is covering her face so that she doesn't give anything away with her eyes or things like that. Just so if you're wondering why the heck she looks like that.
Could you cut the onions with your knife?
She's giving him commands here that are multi-step.
Well, that's very good. Thank you. Could you put some soap on your ball? Well, that's a good job. That's very nice. Thank you. Kanzi, can you put the pine needles in the refrigerator?
So to do a test like this, he has to know what the refrigerator is, how to open it, what the pine needles are, what it means to put something in something else, right? So these are pretty complex commands.
Good job. Thank
Forget
you.
she's wearing the mask so she's not like in the refrigerator.
Kanzi, are you listening? Could you put some soap in the water? Good job. Thank you. Thank you. Could you listen again? Okay. Kanzi, could you pour a little Coke in the water? Could you pour some Coke in the water? Thank you. That's enough. You can. Okay. Kanzi, pour the Perrier water in the jelly. Thank you. That's good. That's good. You see the TV set? Could you take the TV outdoors? Could you carry the television outdoors, please? Thank you.
Sort of like lullaby. So again, they're able to understand very complex sentences, and I think a lot of times people think, okay, well, great apes, we share 98% of our DNA with chimpanzees, right? But they're not the only ones that can do some of these more advanced things. So I had the privilege maybe 10-ish years ago while I was at APA to see this gentleman whose name I'm forgetting his last name, but he is a doctor of comparative cognitive psychology, and he had a border collie. She has unfortunately since passed away. But that he taught her over 1,000 words, and she could do really complex things with them. And so this is actually him showing her off to Neil deGrasse Tyson randomly.
There.
John Pilley, a chipper 82-year-old,
Come by, hurry.
started working with dogs as a psychology professor.
Walk up there, walk up.
Now, he's got one of the smartest dogs around.
Come on, girl.
And I've come to check out what she can do.
Good girl.
Chaser is a 6-year-old female border collie, a breed famously skilled at herding sheep.
She was born to live in the Scottish mountains. Chase, tunnel. And herd sheep. Go, there. Be a shepherd.
John has taught Chaser to tend an extremely large herd.
And so like what she's doing right now are things that a lot of different dogs can learn to do, right? And border collies are very smart. I want to point that out. I think border collies, collies, Shetland sheepdogs, poodles are usually up there in like the most intelligent dogs. But like John's experiments are really creative.
That was a sheep. But there are no real sheep in it.
I can't.
Chaser's herd is made up of toys. About 1,000 of them.
And she knows the name of every single one of these?
I hope.
Sailor.
John has assigned a name to each one.
Never forget. Oh, because it's a...
And taught those names to Chaser.
It's an elephant, okay.
She has about 12 elephants.
Apparently, sometimes John ran out of stuffed animals.
Uh-oh, these are a pair of my shorts.
Oh, my God.
No, that's one of her toys.
John claims that Chaser remembers the name of every single object in the pile. Personally, I find that hard to believe. I don't have time to test Chaser's memory on 1,000 names, but I will test her on a random sample. John and Chaser go into the house so they can't see.
So I'm going to get a handful of toys out of this pile, and see if Chaser can identify them indoors. Here.
With John and Chaser out of the room,
All right.
I lay some of the toys out behind the couch.
Inky. There's Lover.
Now it's time to see if Chaser really remembers their names.
All ready for Chaser. Come on, Chaser. Come to Neil. Okay. Okay, come on down. Quick. Chaser, find Inky.
Well, she got one right.
Find Seal. Whoa!
And that one too.
Okay, ready, Chaser?
Now, you might be wondering what's going on behind the couch. Like, is John handing her the toys?
Find Crawdad.
Let's check our hidden camera.
Find Sugar.
I asked Chaser to find 9 toys, and she got every single one right. And remember, I picked the toys randomly from this huge pile. Neither John nor Chaser saw which ones I picked.
Come back.
On multiple trials with John and others, Chaser consistently aces her test.
There's 1,000 toys here. That doesn't, like, spook you?
It makes me happy.
Let's see what she does when we challenge her with a new toy she's never seen or heard the name of.
I smuggled this into your house.
It's a Charles Darwin doll.
Okay, so I put 7 toys behind the couch, plus Darwin. Chaser's never seen Darwin, hasn't even ever heard the name Darwin. So we're gonna see if she picks out Darwin by inference. That's what we're gonna check. I'm gonna call her down now. Chaser, come on back. Let's have some more fun.
First, I'm going to ask Chaser to find a couple of toys she already knows.
Find Sugar.
Excellent, Chaser. Chaser, good.
Okay, put in a bin. Find Crawdad.
Excellent, excellent, good job.
Okay, put in the tub. Put in the tub.
Okay, here it comes. A name she's never heard before.
Find Darwin.
So while searching for the other toys, Chaser knew exactly which one to pick up right away. But now, she seems to have to think about which one might be Darwin. It's taking her longer. She takes so long, I call her back.
Chaser? Find Darwin. Find Darwin.
Finally, she makes a choice.
Darwin, it got Darwin.
I can't believe it. Chaser's never seen that doll before.
Darwin! That's Darwin! You good girl!
Yet somehow, she made the connection that the name she'd never heard before
You found Darwin!
went with the one toy she didn't recognize.
That's a good girl!
Chaser's not the only dog to do this.
That's Darwin!
And so, again, okay, she can do nouns. What about that? Well, what John Feely taught her to do is to give her very simple sentences, more simple than the ones they were giving Kanzi, but to give her some actions.
Hello, I'm John Pilley. This is Chaser, our boycott. This video tests and demonstrates Chaser's ability to treat the combination of verbs and nouns in such a way that the verb and the noun each have their independent meaning. We will demonstrate this by asking Chaser to combine various verbs with various objects with different names. The 3 verbs will be paw, nose, and take. The 3 objects, lamb, ABC, and lids. We will turn the tape off and start shooting or combining these words immediately. How's that? Jeez. You better Papa. Right now.
So John's gonna stay behind this curtain so that he doesn't inadvertently, again, this is his version of the welder's mask, so he doesn't inadvertently point to the toy.
Good girl. Chase. Take Lamb. Take Lamb, Chase. Take Lamb. Take Lamb. To Papa. To Papa. Good girl. Good girl. Papa. Papa. Good girl. Watch Lamb. Watch Blue. Yeah. Blue. Good girl. Good girl.
The way he's reinforcing her is not with the treats, but instead with playing. And this is actually a lot of the way like canine police dogs are taught to be reinforced as well.
Good girl. Good girl. Good girl. Okay. Pop, pop, take Blue. Pop, pop, take Blue. Pop, pop, take Blue. Come here. Good girl. Chase. Paul Lamb. Paul Lamb. Paul Lamb. Good girl. Good girl.
Like a little hesitant because she's like, I just did Lamb, right? But she did the different action.
Here we go, Chase. Come around. Go get girl. Good girl. There's Blue. Good girl. I want Blue. 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 There. To Pop Pop, take Blue. Good girl. Good girl. All right. Chase. Take lips. Take lips. Do it, girl. Do it. Good girl. Good girl.
So there's 10 minutes of her doing this in very different combinations to kind of show that she had that ability. The animal we've probably had the most success with is the African gray parrot. And so the most famous one of these was Alex the parrot. So I do have a video of him. These animals can live over 100 years old. They're very intelligent. And so this will highlight some of the things that Alex learned to do. And this is not unique to Alex. I actually stumbled upon on Instagram Reels, which again is TikTok for old people, an African gray who's just like, his owner's just interested in teaching him to do some of this stuff. He's not doing it scientifically, but that bird can do a lot of the same stuff. So these parrots are very, very smart.
Aveda Scalp Solutions, formulated to help fight dry, red, irritated, oily scalp. Learn more at Aveda.
And actually, I don't have it for this class, but when I show this in intro, I actually show that when Alex passed away, like the news did an obituary on him. Like that's how important Alex was to science.
Can Alex do any new things since we
Yeah,
saw him last?
we're going to do a couple of new things. I'm going to start with some old things just to warm him up a little bit.
This is Irene Pepperberg, again, a brilliant comparative cognitive psychologist who taught Alex how to do all this stuff. So Alex knows about different types of matter, different colors, different objects. He also understood numbers.
So these are two objects, and we pulled them out of the tray. And the neat thing about this is if he didn't really understand what we were all talking about, he wouldn't be able to answer the several series of questions that I'm going to ask him. He would just have a single response to these things. So can you tell me what's here? What toy? Can you say better? Say better. That's right. Can you tell me how many? How many? Come on, can you tell me how many? Very good. We keep going. Can you tell me what's different? What's different? Color. Come on, what number is gray? Don't want to tell me? Well, tell me, what number is gray? A nut. What number is gray? 4. Very good. Good boy. Okay, you
What
get a
nut,
nut.
right? You get a big nut.
You get a big nut.
How did he get to this point?
We do a modeling training system, which is really fun, which I just so.
And that's part of the reason why everyone's familiar will see the other African gray parrot at the background. So that parrot they're hoping is learning by watching Alex.
Happen to have something we're working on here.
Oh, okay.
We can demonstrate to him.
Good, yeah.
So what we do is I act initially as the trainer,
Yeah.
and you act as the model for his behavior and his rival for my attention.
Oh, okay.
So I ask you about this,
Okay.
and if you get it right, you get to play with it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So you tell me, what's here?
Spoon.
Spoon. There you go. You got the spoon. That's right. He does with it. Yeah. Okay. Then we exchange roles, so he sees that you're not always. I'm not always a questioner, and you're not always a respondent, but it's a thing. And if I make a mistake, you can take the spoon away and scold me.
Oh, what is this? No, wrong. Wrong.
Okay. Now
Try again now.
Okay.
Try again.
Spoon.
Very good.
Okay.
Okay.
So he sees that not only any sound causes a transfer of the object, but a specific.
I find this
sound.
very hard to believe that he's seeing all this and
And he does
drawing
it.
these conclusions.
And he does. Can you tell me what toy? What toy? No, what toy? Come on, what toy? No, you're wrong. What toy?
Spoon.
Spoon. You're right.
Oh,
Spoon.
I like it. I love this spoon. Oh, you're really missing out on a great spoon here.
See,
pal.
look at that. Oh, he's a great trainer. We
What,
should hire him.
What toy? I'm serious about it. Huh? What?
Want a nut.
Want a nut? Sure you want a nut. Just tell us what the spoon is. You'll get it. Very good. Here, take it. Yeah. Because that's the beginning of spoon. Now,
That's right.
if you do it a few more times, can you get him to get that end sound
Yes.
in there?
Say the whole thing.
Say the whole thing. What toy?
Spoon.
Oh,
All
good.
right.
Okay. That's,
You're beginning to get it.
it's slow speech.
One of the things that really boggled their minds is Alex had a concept of zero. So like if she showed him a tray and asked like how many color red and there were no red things, he would say none. We think that like human civilizations didn't have a concept of zero for like many millennia, right? So the idea that like this parrot can understand zero is amazing, right? He also learned to add. And so she was trying to work with one of the other parrots one day, and she was like clicking and be like, how many? And the other parrot wasn't really getting it, so she was repeating. And so she was like, how many? And Alex is like, 2. And she's like, I'm not working with you, you know, how many? And Alex went, 4. And she said, no, it was 2. And how many? And he said 6. And she realized he was adding. And she said, like, accidental discovery, mind blown, right? And so obviously when these animals do pass away, Alex did pass away. Chaser, I believe actually John Pilley has since passed away too. You know, it can be devastating for the people who create such close bonds with them, but also who, you know, this is their livelihood, working with maybe one animal. Yeah, Sam. Yeah, and Alex could do that too, which is awesome. Actually, let me see real quick if I can. We might have even seen the same African and Gray if they come, if they, you know, repost on Insta. I don't know if they post anything on YouTube. Oh, here he is. So this is this other guy, and again, like, I think his owner is just a smart guy who knew about Alex and just decided. Is it the same one? Yeah, he's really fun. His owner's.
What color is this? Black. What's this made of? What's this called? Problem? Touch? No. What am I doing? Hat. What's this made of?
So they made hat in action. If they put anything on their head, it's hat.
That's right. Good boy. All right, 2 more. What's this made of? Paper. Yes, that's right. Good boy. All right, 1 more. What am I doing? Hat. Yes, that's right. Hat. Good boy. There's your snack. What's this made of? Metal. What am I doing? What's this made of? What's that made of? That's right.
And as you can see, he's literally just finding stuff around his house.
Good boy. All right, what am I doing? What's it called? What's the plant made of? One more, you get a snack, okay? What am I doing? Yes, hats. That's right. Good job, Apollo. Hat. Good boy. There's your snack. What color is this?
So yeah, there's a ton of videos of
What am I doing?
Porter doing hat.
What color is this? What am I doing? Pour water. That's right. Pour
water.
pour water. Good boy. What am I doing? Hat. That's right. Hat. Good job, Apollo. There's a snack. What's this called?
Sock.
No.
Royal.
This is the shirt.
Sock.
Shirt.
Black.
What's this called? What?
It's a book.
What's this called?
Block.
No. It's a ball. Look
Stash.
awful. Ball.
Good snack.
This is a shirt.
Shirt.
Yes, shirt. Good boy, Apollo. Here's a snack. What's this called?
Ball.
So he's very similar to Alex in that he's always asking for a snack. Want a pistache?
Yes, ball. Good job, Apollo. What's this called?
Shirt.
What's this called?
Ball.
Yes, ball. Good boy, Apollo. One more. What's this called?
It's a bell.
That's right, bell. Good job, Apollo. What am I?
And what Alex could do and what Apollo can do is he could ask him multiple questions about the same object. So if he held up that bell, he could ask him what color it is, he could ask him what it's made of, and Apollo would be able to answer all of those things. So yeah, go subscribe on TikTok, or apparently they're on YouTube too, and they're fun to follow. Apollo and Friends is what it's called. Alrighty, so we'll stop there for today, and we'll start talking about memory on Wednesday. Bring your case study books, because we're gonna do actually like the famous case study in neuropsych.